phone? Can I check? No, it's the night billing. I don't think they're gonna win. I'm sorry.
Well, now's as good a time as any, Mr. Newman. Take her down to periscope depth.
Yes, sir. Clear the bridge. Dive.
Stand right.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us to the after show. This is a after show for both the tour Dr. Sanford talk podcast as well as the Otangelo David Neff debate. So I'm waiting for some people to come. David, are you there? If you're there, I can send you a link. I'll invite you in. Standing for Truth, are you there? Can everyone hear me?
Absolutely. Sal, it's good to it's really it's an honor to be here on your very first after show. So thanks for inviting me, Sal.
Yes. Well, David asked for a link. I'm going to give you a link, David. And okay, so my first question, since I'm learning StreamYard, is there a way that I could send this to David Neff privately?
Yes, I did just do that. So David, if you're in the, it looks like he is in the chat. I sent it to your email. But yeah, that's all you'd have to do.
Oh, there we are.
Oh, there we go. The whole crew.
Welcome.
The whole crew.
Hello, guys. I am exhausted.
Well, thank you for hanging in there. Thanks for letting us postpone a little bit because Dr. Sanford was talking today, and also Dr. Tour.
Yeah, we got
So that was a big deal.
But it doesn't get much better than that when you've got Dr. Tour and Dr. Sanford having a discussion. So it was more than worth moving it up a bit. That was such a good discussion between them. I'm going to actually go back and rewatch it just to catch everything.
Yeah, I did not get to see it yet. I'll have to put it on my watch list. Otangelo, thank you for the debate, and thank you, Standing for Truth, for hosting it. Hey, SSD, I think we should do a discussion on your channel again sometime, just me and you. Standing, your mic is muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd be happy to, David. It'd be an honor.
Yep.
So I'm sorry I missed a little bit of the debate because I was still trying to figure out StreamYard and everything. So I missed the opening part where you're introducing yourself, David.
Yeah, sure.
A bit about who you are.
Okay, sure. So yeah, I grew up in the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church, and I started becoming an atheist, kind of more of left Christianity around 9th grade. I am a musician. I am passionate about science and music education. So I love all types of science. I love biology and astronomy and climate science. So I wanted to get a bachelor's degree. And one of those sciences, I'm just not sure yet which one yet I want to do. I'm thinking of doing Earth, Oceanic, and space science, and that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, but I don't know yet.
Oh, so you must be very young yet.
I'm 25, so
okay.
Not too old.
Thank you. Well, I was a classical musician.
Oh, nice.
Piano performance.
Yeah, I do piano.
I had to get a job, so I ended up changing disciplines. Oh, before I forget, greetings, Otangelo and Logical Probable.
Yes, hello, Sal. It's a pleasure to be at your channel. It's always great to have interactions with you.
So I'm learning my way around StreamYard and learning to host discussions. So I'll probably be doing this for a while. Probably my main focus though will be actually doing teaching videos, and because I think that's where the most important work will be done. That's really more of what I feel more qualified for and where my gifts are.
Yeah,
not so much debates. I said if someone wanted me to debate them, it's like make it a 5-day debate. We'll be very thorough.
Yeah. Hey, what type of stuff do you teach? What do you teach?
I'm working. I'm going to be working to teach molecular biology, and I've never taken the course in molecular biology, but a professor of molecular biology who's also a cell biologist and a physical organic chemist is Dr. Change Tan.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about Rob Stadler. Dr.
No.
Tan was actually the lead author of the book, Stairway to Life. And the
Interesting.
way she teaches her molecular biology course is actually, if you take everything in the Stairway of Life, that's about half of her course, because
Yeah.
it's just brutal, where she just goes through the basic molecular biology and
Yeah,
the chemistry of it.
Just out of curiosity, just so I can get to know you a little bit better, are you a Christian? Where do you stand?
I'm a Christian. I got saved 42 years ago, and I was probably a theistic evolutionist for 1 year, and then became a old earth creationist for 20 years, 25 years, and then a old earth creationist, young life creationist for a little bit, and then eventually a young cosmos creationist. So
Yeah. So you're full into the young Earth creationist realm. Interesting.
yes. So
Uh,
in my background is I have 5 science degrees. The first one was in computer science. The second was a bachelor's in electrical engineering with a minor in music with piano performance. Then a bachelor's in mathematics with a minor in physics. And then I got a master's in applied physics at Johns Hopkins University. And then the equivalent of a master's in biology from the National Institutes of Health.
Interesting.
So, but I still, there's a lot of undergrad biology I still need to kind of relearn, because I got very specialized into protein and structural biology, and I didn't get some of the molecular biology and organic chemistry, even though I have some I published in biochemistry papers. But it's just funny how if you're a co-author with someone who is a biochemist, you can one can still publish, because your partner, your co-author, fills in the gaps. So
Yeah.
so thank you so much for asking. I presently, you seem to have known who I am, because you greeted me when I was at
Yeah.
when I was.
I've seen you in the live stream sometimes, like in the chat room. I'm pretty sure I know seen you in the chat sometimes.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, and
Yeah, it's a
nice
pleasure.
meeting a fellow musician. So, do you still think of yourself as a Christian?
I would consider myself an atheist.
Oh, you consider yourself an atheist?
Yes, I'm an atheist.
Okay. Well, still, thank you very much for joining us,
And thank you for having me.
and I appreciate the fact that you stayed up so late. Are you a morning person? And
Well, unfortunately, my job requires me to be a morning person. It is now almost 12 o'clock midnight, and I have been up since about 6 a.m. my time. So I've had a very long day, and my brain is just fried. I mean, it was pretty much fried when I was getting into the debate, but now it's really fried.
well, perhaps out of respect, I should encourage you to just take a rest. This is not goodbye, and it's certainly not the end of discussions.
Oh yeah, I
We're
definitely.
honored that you would join us.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to bail soon, but I just did want to pop in and say hello and introduce myself to you. It's nice to finally get to meet you. And saying for
Likewise.
truth, John Maddox, if you have anything you want to say to me or anything like that, by all means.
No, I was going to say thanks for the good debate. People were saying in the chat that it was a very respectful, engaging debate. I agree. A lot of fun to listen to. I want to point out something Redefined Living said that I thought was funny. He said Sal has more degrees than a thermometer. In other words, Sal, you're a very well-educated man, and we love you.
Well, there's a lot to learn. I actually, even in listening to the debates tonight and the discussions tonight, it's like, yeah, goodness, I need to learn about that, or I need to learn about that. And biology is a very broad area. There's so many things to learn. There are like 20,000 proteins in the human genome. I mean, that count could change. These are proteins
You mean gene
classes, major
genes,
classes,
right?
not counting alternative splices. And it's not unusual for a researcher to specialize in just one protein for his whole life. In fact, there's several researchers that's practically where some teams of researchers, that's the only thing that they studied is that one protein. I could say that's particularly for the topoisomerase family of enzymes. So
Yeah, you could spend your entire life studying just one tiny little molecule and still not even scratch the surface. It's really incredible.
yes, and so there are very interesting points that were raised, and perhaps there'll be opportunity to interact again.
Yeah, I'm definitely wanting to get another debate in with Otangelo because I thought both of us were very respectful of each other and courteous.
Well, the next big debate's going to be, you ready for it? John Maddox versus David Neff. Whew! Pay-per-view event.
Whoa!
Hey, Sean.
David's been trying to get that one for a while, but David, I have to ask you, man. I have to ask you. So, you spewed a lot of talking points tonight,
Yeah.
and I find them very entertaining because we hear them all the same thing from the same people, but never real answers to the counterpoints about the structure formation requirements for the expression of the supposed new information. So, for example, with prokaryotes, if you don't have the promoters in the specific linear position, you cannot have gene expression.
Okay.
So, how do you remotely think it is plausible that all of the promoters end up in the exact specific location from a linear perspective before you even account for the sequential requirements for the gene? How do you remotely explain that happening through undirected process at all? Like, that makes no logical sense whatsoever.
All right, and sure, and I think this will be a good time. I would actually really like to do a whole stream on this just with you when I'm not so fried. Would that be okay? I'm not trying to bail or anything with it or try to duck and run. But
okay, okay, that's fine. Well, let me ask you this direct question then.
Sure.
And this, you don't have to get into detail with this. Just I want to know if you know this. Can we have a gene sequence, a gene that is quote supposedly considered a duplicate, but actually has different outcome based on intron differences that influence alternative splicing?
So again, a duplicate mutation that duplicates the
no. We have a duplicate gene sequence, right? Up until recently, it was considered it's just a duplicate, right? It's a copy.
Yeah.
But then we're finding out that actually turns out the end outcome is different based on intron differences. So we have been for years have been saying, oh, this is just a duplicate because the exons are the same. What we're discovering now is that there's variable outcome of that. The exon sequence is the same. The introns are different. And the introns are literally altering the outcome of that sequence expression. So the point where I'm going with all this is, one, do you know about this? And two, if you do, how do you explain that in the relation to evolution relying on gene duplication and like modification from there, being a fundamental requirement for your theory, but you have to have the quote unquote junk in order for the variation to happen?
That is actually an excellent question. To answer the first one, I am not familiar with that. Would you actually be willing to send me some links to a study where I can actually read some of that?
I've got papers on it in my folder.
Okay, sure. Can you email me the?
It's in the folder.
So I can link
it's in
to
the folder. Everything's foldered.
Yeah. If you can send that to me, that would be fantastic.
The link is in the description of my channel.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said my folder link is in my about page on my channel.
Okay, so hold on, logical, possible, probable. Let me just see here.
But I guess what I'm really wanting to get a kind of answer from you is like, do you recognize the significance of what I just said in terms of how this is a major challenge to evolutionary theory?
Not right off the top of my head, to be perfectly honest, but that's probably because my brain is completely fried right now. So I'm looking at your About page. I just don't. Where is the folder you said?
There's a link that says "For the Annoying People." I don't mean that about you, but it's just in general.
Okay, for the annoying people. There we go. I will definitely take a look at that, and maybe Standing for Truth and can get us set up where we can talk about one of the topics or whatever.
Yeah, potentially. Like I said, the whole point I'm making here is I'm not trying to play a gotcha game. I'm trying to just make the point that all I hear from you and have heard from you for quite some time is the exact same talking points over and over again. And I mean, the Dover trial, dude, is so old and outdated with all of the knowledge that's now known. I mean, that ruling was stupid. Like, you're relying on a non-scientist judge ruling to somehow be the ultimate defense of evolution, number one. But number two, the ridiculous amount of new variable requirements that have been discovered in the last 5 years, let alone since that trial, absolutely are paradigm shifts in our understanding of biology in and of itself. So I really don't understand why you and all the other evolutionary biology activists run around relying on that when, to be blunt, in my opinion, it just showcases ignorance of reality.
So I guess the point that I brought it up is that the chromosome. So excuse me. You can tell that I'm starting to get really drained now. That even Dr. Michael Behe himself, this is from the judge. This is what actually happened in the trial. Simply didn't have any answer for this. So I'm just really
okay. So you do realize that Behe has like done a formal counter to Miller, right?
I have not. I know he has done it, but I have not read it or seen it.
Okay, so you're relying on outdated propaganda then.
No, I mean, I would like to read it
because there is a formal response to it. Is the point I'm making. So again, to my point about evolution activists such as yourself on YouTube running around making this argument, and you don't even know that there's been a direct counter by the person you're claiming had no answer. And it's like, I mean, we get down to, I mean, Otangelo was making the point tonight of like, cool, you got a Rolls Royce and you can like take it down to a Volkswagen. Does it still have the same fundamental requirements? And it's just like, I've got a drill. Cool. I can put different drill bits in it. Does that mean that the fact that I have a motor that can use drill bits, does that mean that motor is going to turn into a car engine? I mean, that's like the argument that's being made by the Millers, because you still have to get down to the fundamental three-dimensional structure, which Salvador talks about a lot, and you have to account for the schematics. It's amazing.
Time out. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I need a little help with. George wants to get in. Is there a way I could send him the private link? I don't mind posting it, but I would like.
I send it to him. It's just a link on the browser where StreamYard.com, and there comes a sequence of letters, and that's the one which you will copy to the.
Salvador, I'll send it to. Okay, go ahead, John.
I'll send it to George.
Okay, so there's not a private way. I don't mind giving it public because I can always toss people that I don't want. But it's thanks. I really apologize there, John. I didn't want to.
Oh, it's no worries. I was going on a long-winded diatribe.
So I didn't mean to derail everything. Oh my goodness, profuse apologies. So someone, I'm in a chat discussion with a bunch of people there. So it's really great that you all are here because I don't think I could multitask.
Yeah, that is not a problem. What I would recommend,
talk and listen at the same time.
One of the things I would recommend that you do is actually post a link to the StreamYard in the discussion forum, and then you can just monitor who you want in and who you don't want in. I think that will probably be the most straightforward way for you to do so.
Oh, say that again. I missed that, David.
So copy and paste the link and make the link public, but you can control who is actually going in on the stream and who's not. So that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
So John, one of the things I was kind of bringing up, one of the things that I kind of like to do it backwards, like take from the biodiversity that we have now and try and trace backwards. That I think has been my approach. You and I both agree with speciation and all that. So the question that I was trying to ask Otangelo, and one of the things I want to ask you is, where does the common ancestry break down? For example, how do we know if two organisms are related to each other, or how do we know if two clades are related to each other from this level, working backwards?
I'm going to flip that on you and say, what level of assumption is made on there being a common ancestor for all of them anyway?
All right. Well,
I mean, let's think about this for a second. What do you found the supposed relationships on?
all right. Well, one thing we could do without even looking at genetics or morphology is looking at
No. Genetics is the only one that matters. The rest of it is complete BS, because any other attempt to prove evolution through homology or morphology is a joke, because it's all dependent on genetic information, whether it be genetic code, epigenetic variation or variables and coding, and which Angelo talked about tonight. Those are the things that result in what you're trying to rely on. I'm about to bring up here. So from a genetic standpoint, what is it?
Okay, well, one things that we do is what I brought up with the cats. We can look at the cat DNA and figure out when they diverged, and both evolutionists and creationists would agree that the cats share a common ancestor.
And what is the? And I'm not arguing with that. Well, what portion of the genome is being looked at for this? That's 100% fundamental, supposedly, into determining all of the relationships.
I'm not sure right off the top of my head, but that being said, we do know that.
For phylogenetics, are they looking at the coding genes? Yes or no?
I believe so. That being said, hold on. That several of the cats, such as the lions and the tigers, can interbreed and produce infertile offspring. So before we even look at the genetics, we can tell that there has to be some type of relationship between them, even by the strictest definition of kind by the creationist.
What does that have to do with evolutionary theory in the context of macroevolution and new body plan formation?
Okay, sure. So with that, we can.
If the lion and the tigers mate, do the lions and tigers already have fully completed systems that have all of the fundamental requirements for them to exist on a genetic level?
Of course, nobody denies it. Nobody denies that.
Okay, so if a tiger and a lion mate, what the heck does that have to do with the formation of an entirely new organism?
All right, well,
I'm talking about from a macroevolutionary perspective.
Well, macroevolution is basically speciation. That's what it is.
No, macroevolution in the conversation that we're having is the formation of entirely new functionality body plans.
Okay, sure.
We all know this, and we also all know that evolutionists love to run around and try and create all these gray line, blurry areas, and be like, "No, man, we're talking about how in the heck did a completely new function, component of life that are required for these different types of life forms to exist?" Because when we look at it from a genetic perspective, there's massive amounts of different information that's required. Correct?
Correct. Of course, nobody denies that. Nobody in the right mind would that.
So we can't even explain exactly how a supposedly new gene would form. Correct?
We have ideas, but
we have no proof. Correct?
Correct. I mean,
okay. So the evolutionists run around claiming that our very existence has somehow occurred by something that has not been observed. We can't recreate, we can't test, and we cannot prove. And we also agree that there's all sorts of different highly complex functions that are required in order for, even hypothetically speaking, the new gene to form. And you haven't explained those either. And yet evolutionists such as yourself run around claiming that people like Otangelo are relying on things like irreducible complexity, when you can't even explain the fundamental basics of how the information came into being, or even if some of it did exist, how the new, entirely different alternative structure could come into existence.
Great. Well, anyway, with that, that's a really good point to end on. I'm sorry I am falling asleep, and so I am going to start bailing. John, let's talk through email and let's set up a time to chat because I am about to collapse.
All right, well, you have a good night, man.
All right, good night, guys. Thank you,
Good debate,
Tim.
man.
Good night.
John the Powerhouse. Nobody messes with JM. Nobody. You know,
I wouldn't try to be a jerk. It's just like I'm
No, but
getting
you
I'm getting so
kill it.
tired of listening to the same talking points, whether it be and Neff, and to Neff's credit, he has the CO Jones to come out, have the conversations, and make the arguments. Then we got the Bill Tavises of the world who claim to be theistic evolutionists or whatever.
Yeah.
And literally, I mean, that joker literally argued that you were too prideful and I was not worthy to have a debate with him. But he can't answer basic questions, talks massive amounts of trash, and then it's like.
And remember, that's 99.99% of the evolutionists. They're keyboard warriors, and they rarely want to leave mama's basement to come for an actual live debate. But somebody like the Bill Tavises of the world bombards my channel over the last 2 days with 100 comments, all wall text. Like, you think I got time to read your wall text? At least leave some paragraphs. So finally I get him in the live chat. And I'm like, okay, he can't do wall text here. So let's see just how much he knows. And I ask him some basic questions. You ask him some basic questions. And this guy just falls all over him.
I mean, tonight.
That's typical evolutionist.
I mean, tonight, Otangelo, fantastic debate, by the way. You should be more of a jerk like me.
You're not a jerk, John.
Otangelo's opening statement
was
just like mic drop at the like okay, so I'm gonna outline at a very high and low level, like simultaneously, why the entire premise of evolution is stupid. And anybody with an IQ above 95 should be able to comprehend, like, holy crap, he has just outlined, like, who knows how many intricate parts that are interdependent and rely upon each other in order to function. And he's not even getting into the underlying piece, which is the complexity of the information structure that is required in order for all these interdependent parts to exist, to express and to execute all these different functions that are required at the fundamental level for life to exist. Like, how, at what point are the evolutionists going to just realize that they have consciously retarded themselves to the extent they have the inability to comprehend what would be obvious to anybody in any other context in relation to this overall argument of like, hey, could adaptation be the result of pre-programming and anticipation of variable function necessity? It looks like that is exactly what is in place. Therefore, this is understandable.
Well,
no. It all happened by accident. It's total chance and undirected process.
Yeah, but it all happened by chance for no reason at all, Otangelo. That was a masterpiece of an opening. As the Bible says, you pretty much have to be willingly ignorant to watch the evidence presented in your opening and actually still honestly deny a designer and a creator. You should honestly just take that opening and upload it to your channel and upload it as a challenge to all atheist evolutionists and naturalists to refute it, because I agree with John. That was a really, really good opening, Otangelo.
Yeah, and I mean, I had just 12 minutes, so I tried to compress as much information as possible in a short period of time. But of course, each of the points made, there are books on each of the points made. So,
good point. Yeah, I'll be the first to say it's really, really hard to condense so much overwhelming evidence for our position in even just a 12-minute opening. I feel like I would just need like a 3-hour opening just to get started. So you did a good job condensing all of that into 12 minutes, but take it from experience. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Can I just say, I've now asked this same question, I think, of 3 debaters, the MO1 bacteria, but as soon as you mention the word flagella, they seem to default back to the Kenneth Miller explanation. But the MO1 bacteria, it's claimed to be the earliest single cell at 3 billion years old. It uses 7 tails that rotate in one direction, while it has 24 interconnecting gears which are arranged in a hexagonal arrangement, and they rotate in the opposite direction. They don't seem to know about the MO1 bacteria. As soon as they hear this flagella, they tend to go back to that example that Behe first proposed. So I just wanted to ask David that question, because it seems like no one seems to know about this. Even Ron Garrett mentioned the same thing. He says, "Oh, it's been explained in Wikipedia. Go find out about it in Wikipedia." So I don't know what you guys.
Using Ron Garrett as an example is a bad idea. That guy knows nothing beyond Wikipedia, and categorically refuses to go and do any research, actual reading for himself, or to use any level of cognitive ability, which he supposedly has given his PhD, to address any of the points that are made.
I'm just wondering whether they're using that as a tactic, though, John, to say, "Oh, it was debunked." Realizing that the MO1 bacteria is pretty much, you can't debunk it. You cannot possibly debunk it. Even they claim it to be the earliest cell at 3 billion years. So how does the earliest cell develop 7 flagella rotating in one direction while 24 interconnecting gears are rotating in the opposite direction? It's ridiculous.
Well, this goes back to the point I was making, which is there is no plausible explanation for that outside of intelligent agency. Like there is none. I mean, you have somebody. No, I have to go forward and backwards simultaneously. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But there's no engineer on this planet who would ever, with a straight face, make the argument that's plausible in any other context.
Well, I think the best we can do are jumbo jets, which have I think 2 to 4 engines, and compare that to the MO1 bacteria. It's silly, like, to think that that could have evolved in some way without an intelligence behind it.
Well, George, it's a
George.
sensitive. Oh, go ahead, Stanley.
I'm not going to fall for that trap.
Where have I heard that before?
No, I'm not falling for that trap. Could you imagine being in a question and answer session, and every single honest question that comes at you, your answer is, "I'm not falling for that."
Not falling for that trap.
That was some of the funny. That was one of the funniest. Although I have to say, Todd, I don't know what. Todd against Otangelo and Todd versus SFT. I don't know. Honestly, for him, I don't know which one was more embarrassing, because Otangelo just let him run his mouth more.
Yeah.
And everything that was coming out of it. I mean, it was basically like listening to. I was having deja vu in your debate with him, SFT, because it was like the same junk coming out of his mouth. And it's like, obviously, you were not paying attention at all in the responses that you interrupted, because you would have known that your point was already debunked when you were talking with Otangelo. But nope, you were too busy. You were too busy interrupting him to pay attention to the fact that you were being annihilated from your literal 1990s arguments. I mean, it was
He stepped into a time machine, walked out in 2020, and decided to debate me and Otangelo. And
Chris Keith had the best line. He's like, "I feel like I jumped in the hot tub time machine."
But John, vestigial organs.
I mean, that was his line of reasoning, man. It's crazy.
He's their savior.
I promise Sal some jokes. Sal, what do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back?
What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back?
Yes. A stick.
George and the one-liners.
You know what would be very interesting would be to ask a evolutionist if they think it's remotely plausible that a boomerang could ever recreate itself, given the fact that it comes from a biological organism that can reproduce.
Yeah. I've got another one for yourself. This is a bit technical. It's a bit sciencey. What do you call? Oh, sorry. Why can't you trust an atom?
Why can't you trust an atom?
Because they make up literally everything.
That's a good
It's like
one.
the evolutionist storyboard. Storyboard time. They'll just make up anything, or tell you to go to Wikipedia.
Hey, but it's in line with that, I have to say, Todd may be the best storyteller of all time.
He is,
and that dude has bought
must
in.
love him.
He has bought into. You know what? That guy is like the child who is like retelling the fairy tale that you told them when they still believe it. That's what's going on with that guy. It'd be like, son, Santa Claus is not actually real. Yes, he is, Daddy. Yes, he is. He's in the North Pole. He's in the North Pole, and the dwarfs help him. And he's got Rudolph, and he rides the reindeer all the way to give me the presents. I mean, that's like, and you're like, well, son, he's too fat. He can't actually fit in the chimney. Yes, he can. It's magic. That's tough.
Sal, are you still trying to work that one out? Why can't you trust an atom?
Because they make up everything.
Because they literally make up everything. You don't get it?
They make
because
up
everything's
stories.
made out of atoms, Sal.
Oh, I got it. I'm a little slow.
You got it though. George is our team comedian. So George, you've been working overtime with the jokes. I love it.
My goodness.
That's my last joke. That's it.
No, we
Serious
want
stuff
more.
now.
We want more. Encore.
Yeah. Oh, you want another one? Oh no.
Yes.
Pressure. Let's see. Yeah, God, I got to find one.
Here's a joke. What do you call a former young Earth creationist who knows nothing about young Earth creation? Todd. or all of those so-called former young Earth creationists that go on Dapper Dino's channel.
Why don't oysters give to charity?
Why?
Because they're shellfish.
You're great.
Selfish. Is shellfish? Shellfish?
Yeah. I appreciate your rated G jokes.
Okay.
I like them.
You know what I find interesting about, as we're talking about the quote unquote former young Earth creationists or just creationists in general, the level of ignorance, yet the adamant buy-in to the talking points is fascinating to me. And then it's like they have gigantic mental shields up to even contemplate counterpoints or go and look for them for themselves, right? Like, for example, Neff and all the other ones that go on their tangents about like the Dover trial and introduce complexity and Behe. It's like Behe literally wrote a giant, like rather in-depth paper countering Miller's argument. And that was years ago when he wrote it.
Right. You're right.
And you guys don't know this, yet still completely, rely 100% on the judge's ruling. Like, what is your point? Like, I mean, to me, at some point, you have to come to the realization of things like this. Is why a lot of times I argue about like dual use syntax. I'm like, we didn't even realize the existence of dual use syntax at the time of that stupid trial. So, or at least not to the extent that we do now, right? So,
but
okay.
You know what impresses John is that in 15 years they didn't change their tune. They are still discussing the same points made back then. It's impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and the point that I was making to Neff or to Neff at the beginning of, How do you explain the three-dimensional structure of the promoter region being in the specifically required location, which we now know beyond doubt transcription cannot occur without this 3D structure being in this specific linear spot? Like, there is no way around this in prokaryotes.
Well, don't worry. Don't worry, John. He's going to make a video about it. Oh, yeah, because there's no answer. And it's like you said, these guys use the same talking points as if they haven't been refuted. This is how uninformed these guys are. For example, you see it everywhere. Like with genetic entropy, with Dr. John Sanford's work, I cannot tell you how many times people have used that blog, that so-called blog rebuttal from somebody named Scott Buchanan, Letters to a Creationist. And they'll send it to you, or they'll utilize it as if it hasn't been addressed. All those weak, pathetic arguments. It's like they're not even aware that you can go to creation.com and find a full-length rebuttal from Dr. Sanford himself to those arguments. But yet they'll still parrot the same already debunked arguments. And this goes for everything. It goes for Behe. It's like they think these guys have tapped out and they haven't responded to their critics.
Well, the other one I meant to go after Neff on was the immune system argument is really getting obnoxious. It is so dumb, in my opinion. There's 625 genes in the human immune, specifically dedicated to the human immune system. Via the way that they are expressed in the variation of the way they're expressed, you can have no less than 90 million different antibody variations. 90 million from 625 genes. Like in the way that they're set up to be expressed and the way the different expression levels from which section of genes is taken is then inserted into like the variable region, but then you maintain the fixed structure and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, dude, that is not random. You're getting a variation, different variable, like one section is variable in order to account for a new unknown. Like, you're accounting for an unknown variable in a controlled method. Like, what about that is random? Nothing. I mean, and you're going to run down and be like, oh, well, HIV evolved from SIV. It's like, to me, it's like, it just showcases another like ignorance of anything other than the talking point. And it's like, do you know how antibodies are formed and like the different cells and how they interact? It blows the mind, in my opinion. If you actually go and like look at the actual processes, nothing about it seems accidental.
Yeah, they suppress the truth because they reject God. That's the whole explanation. Why they reject what is logic. That's the problem.
Sal, you need to put Lena's last chat up on the screen.
I do not want to be rude, but if you want to see proof of genetic entropy, just watch the Sunday Atheist on Speed of Sound channel. Okay, so wait. Oh, you're asking me to try to. Oh, yes, I figured out how to do that. See,
okay, so Sal, since we're in,
I went through this too, so it's a good learning experience.
Since you're in learning mode, click on banners.
Oh, you like this?
On the right. Okay, so you see like brand banners. I guess in the far right column. Okay, so click on that, and then it should give you an option to like. There should be. I think there's a couple default ones. Then you can like add one.
Like brand?
No, above brand, you should see a thing that says banner.
Okay. All right, so I have one. Thanks, Sal. Thanks, Speed Racer, and thanks, Mad Ox.
There we go.
I just made one up.
Okay, there you go. So that's how you do that.
And then, of course, you see how you can change the like if somebody wants to share screen or something, you can change it to full screen and then move us off to the side. You know what I mean? I see you've already figured out how to put people's comments on screen, but you can also, if you'll see right underneath the screen that we're watching, you can actually change the position of how we are. You know what I mean? Right.
Oh, okay.
So you might play with that for a second. And
you're talking about directly below the video screen. So yeah. He's talking about there's several rectangles below the screen.
Blue windows
where you see all of us. Like the far right one's like a full screen mode. Then you got like sidebar.
Right.
for share screen.
Okay, so I can move the people around,
There you go.
and I can put myself in the center.
There you
Oh
go.
yeah, I like that.
You're the center of the discussion.
Sal likes to act like he's so humble, but he just wants to be the center of attention.
So, oh, and I can add Jeremy now, right? It
Yeah.
says device is not connected, and there's jungle jargon. How did I lose him? Okay. So,
Hello. If I get kicked out, don't worry about it. It's just because I have a bad bandwidth, whatever.
oh, okay. Well, I tried to. Let me see. It says your guests will need to connect their mic cam before you can add them to the stream. So things
They're
I
having a
learned
problem
today.
with their mic. Yeah, they're having a problem with their mic issue. And if that person, you can just, before you come in, you can just like mic check, and you should see the little meter go up, and that'll test your mic for you.
Okay, great. Well, I learned something today. So,
And then maybe somebody in a little bit or something will share something on the screen just so you can get that down. That'd be the one more thing that you probably would like for somebody to do.
so let's see. Lena had their I don't want to be rude. And then I'm going to cut the banner. I'll hide the banner. So who's Sunday Atheist?
Does anybody know them?
No, that's what I think that's what Speed of Pudding is calling that particular stream. Is when he gets they all get together and do their little tangent.
That's not the handle of someone.
No, that's their like Sunday stream where it's like they at least theoretically it's to review the week of all the crazy things the creationists said. Usually it turns into him and Immutable and like 3 or 4 other guys rambling and not really addressing anything.
Oh, so here, let me see. So then how do I hide a comment? How do I undo?
Just go back to where you would just put them on there.
You can either click on a different one real quick and then like you just have to double click it. Sometimes it's hard to find out.
Oh, there. Okay.
Figure out which
Because
one
if
you
it
click.
scrolls off. But then let me see. I want to try something here. Well, you all talk. I'm going to try something.
Yeah, go ahead. The only thing I would advise you on is to be careful, like especially like it's happened to me, and I have a very tiny channel, and like late at night, if there's somebody joining that you don't really know, or not even late at night, but if nobody else in the chat knows them either, be careful letting them in because they'll like put something vulgar on there, and then you'll have to go back and edit it. But you can go into just click on this video and go to right underneath the video. You can hit edit video. You can go to the studio editor and you can blur it out. So I did it.
Okay.
It's that way. If not, you may have to delete the whole video so you don't get a strike.
Yeah, sometimes people like to porn bomb.
Yeah, it's called porn bombing. It happened to me, and it's a pain, but you can blur it out. If it ever happens, just let us know. We'll tell you how to fix it. Let somebody know that you got email with.
So standing, who's Derek debating this weekend? Standing is off. Yeah, he's eating pizza while mainlining coffee.
Well, in the meantime, since Lena mentioned, so now we know Sunday Atheist. I have to do this now.
Yeah, you can go there and click on there. We can.
It could well be the best thing for the human race to get dumber and dumber until we lose our minds entirely. I mean, that may end up being the most reproductive, successful thing, right? But so be it. That thing. It could well be the best thing for the human race to get dumber and dumber until we lose our minds entirely. I mean, that may end up being the most reproductive, successful thing, right?
I don't know how to take that stuff seriously. I mean, it's
Is that
It's
his
obvious he
objective?
does, though. That's what's scary. It's obvious he does.
That sounds like his objective.
Yeah. Weird.
Well, and it's really nice when I show a little clip of Jim Carrey shortly thereafter. So
in my original response video to Godless Engineer, I actually incorporated a portion of the Dumb and Dumber clip where it's like, so you're telling me there's a chance that it's like, man, I tell you what, the level of atheist Fantasyland projection complex just blows my mind by the day. It gets more and more just like, what world do you guys live in? I mean, seriously, the things that we are discovering on a daily basis that just utterly annihilate the premise of undirected process. I mean, to me, like the whole, it's not undirected. It's natural selection through environmental pressures. Like, no, the underlying supposed functional like new function formation. No, it doesn't just happen by anything other than undirected process. And they freely admit this. If you actually go and listen to them, their lectures about evolutionary biology, they admit that it's still random. Fundamentally, at the foundation, it's still random. So what the heck is undirected or not undirected about something that's completely random? I mean, I don't understand how you any other conclusion than it's undirected if it's random.
I missed the chance with David. I didn't get in time to ask him. I wanted to follow up on my super chat because he kind of just basically defined the need. They did it a lot, like a need for something implies the mechanism. But I wanted to know what's the mechanism, not that they're like, well, because this would be beneficial. That tells me the necessity, what the need, is. I understand that, but it's not giving me the how, the mechanism.
The fact that they survived is fine, but how do you get the capacity to survive?
Yeah, I mean, another way to put it.
It's such basic common sense logic that the fact that premise is suspended with what we now know the requirements are. Like, okay, I mean, Todd, like, we understood everything about genetics in the 1950s in relation to evolution. Like, no, we didn't. No, we still don't, and we're admitting that we know less and less than we thought we did.
I remember that comment.
I mean, what universe when geneticists will admit that given some of the recent discoveries, it's like we now know basically nothing about the macro level of functional capacity. Like, we don't actually know really anything.
Well, I think a lot of these ones, people that do not really study, not the scientists that are in these chats, like Todd doing that, they're just listening to the atheist apologist. You know what I mean? They're not actually they're just go ahead and accepting what they say fully. It kind of reminds me of like on David Wood's channel with they go to the Muslims and they really haven't studied their books. They hit them with some tough questions and they just like, well, they're imams or, they've got it figured out for them and they don't have to do any work because it's already been done. And they don't want to confront the thing themselves. And it's not challenging what we're asking if you really would just go look and do a little bit of research for yourself. Just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. But they're not willing to put that little bit. They're not willing to challenge their worldview enough to go, look at the other side. It's my opinion.
Well, I think the good portion of that is because if they do, I think they're afraid, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think about like Neff, just as an example. He was a quote unquote fundamentalist Baptist, I think he called himself. Mm-hmm. Now he's a atheist and a active one at that. And it's like, okay, why is he so active? Is it because he wants to convince all these other people of how horrible creationism is and God? Or is he searching for ways to convince himself that what he knows at the fundamental level to be true and was exposed to throughout his entire life is like his escape mechanism is invalid?
John, that is exactly what I think it is. That's why I think the same ones that keep coming back, especially not even on the scientific one, that even the theological conversations we have, They're coming to see if we can change their mind. A lot of them are ex-Christians, and they're wanting to see if we have any new arguments or any arguments that will change their mind. And but they've already made up their mind that it's not true, or for whatever reason they've left the faith. So what evidence can you give them? I mean, the scientific evidence is the best. So that's why this is really important, I think, what FST's doing, and, Otangelo, and even you and Sal, everybody, that's what's so important. That's why I love this topic, because it's a way to show them, look, yes, there is an intelligent designer. Now, that should give you faith to be looking, or give you, the building blocks to start looking for, okay, which intelligent designer is it the most plausible? And I think it's pretty obvious once you start getting into that. There's not very many religions to choose from.
Well,
in my opinion.
I mean, Otangelo made the argument tonight with, among a variety of things, but like photosynthesis and the number of fundamental components that are recognized to be fundamental, and the different proteins that are required, or that process doesn't work. And if that entire completed system doesn't exist, then you have death. Like, there's no way around it. So no matter how you want to say, like, oh, well, it took a long time to happen, there's no way around the fact that they all have to exist simultaneously in order to have a completed system which can theoretically reach the end outcome is required, that we all recognize is required.
Mm-hmm. Irreducible complexity, the chicken and the egg, it comes up everywhere. Like metamorphosis, it comes up there. You name a process, it's complex, it's always comes up, and they always have to have some kind of ad hoc to come up with to explain it. But at what point does it become,
and here's the other thing I think it really needs to be stressed as much is not just the term irreducible complexity, but the level of dependent paradoxes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only is this one a chicken and egg problem, this one and this one and this one and this one and this one, and this one and this one and this one are all paradoxes which ultimately are dependent on each other in order for those paradoxes to be solved. It's not just, hey, we have to solve paradox number 1 and then we can move on to paradox number 2. No. We have to solve all of the paradoxes simultaneously in order to proceed. And
exactly.
That's, to me, it's when you get into what is actually a plausible premise, not what's the probability. That's irrelevant. We now have to factor in what's the plausibility of all of this. Sorry, Sal, I know you're trying to say something. My bad.
Oh, I just wanted to throw in a few words for Dr. Sanford's talk tonight. Some of the most interesting parts, the one that really put a smile on Dr. Tour's face, was when Dr. Sanford was mentioning the post-translational modifications on proteins, and then the modifications on RNA viruses. That's being researched by the NIH, enabling exploration of the eukaryotic epitranscriptome. So these are all layers, and Dr. Tour, being a nanotechnologist, really, I think he understood the significance of that. So I was really glad to hear Dr. Sanford mention it in passing, because that actually represented about 6.5 years of work, reporting work at the NIH that I was doing. And my responsibility was just to pass that information on to him. So
could you repeat that? Its information is being corrected as it's being used?
I'm going to type it in the chat, just so, because it's a mouthful.
Post-translational modifications, Jungle, it's where the initial protein synthesis occurs through the ribosome, and then after that, there's all sorts of additional modifications that are required to reach the end functional outcome that's needed.
Right. Well, the Golgi apparatus modifies it for the...
Right, that's one of the components that does a lot of post-translational modification.
So there is, if we use the word epi just loosely, we have the epigenome, which does involve the modification of DNA. So you have the genome and epigenome. We have the transcriptome, which is the RNA, and we have the epitranscriptome, which is modifications of the RNA. And then we had the proteome, which is the proteins, and the post-translational modifications could be called the epiproteome. So you actually have 6 layers of organization, and we've barely touched the epitranscriptome. We know that it's very important, but it's very hard to do any research in that area because RNAs have a half-life and they don't last very long. The experiment has to be conducted before the RNAs decay. So it's very difficult, but there's some really exciting stuff there. So
I came across some stuff this past week actually on this in relation to the RNA epitranscriptome of like methylation happening to an RNA, an mRNA, and that's just one of many obviously modifications to it. But when you really think about that, of as you're saying, these 6 different layers that we know of, right? Potentially 6 layers that we're aware of right now. There could be plenty more, but even just the fact that there's more than one that's needed to reach the end outcome is a mind bender, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know in any other context where it would be deemed remotely rational to conclude that can happen. And I would wager that Dr. Tour, because I think isn't one of Dr. Tour's degrees, it's either information theory or computer science.
He teaches computer science, so he's very knowledgeable in a number of fields, which is great.
I found it pretty funny. I forget who it was now. Somebody was talking trash talking. It was Professor Dave. He was trash talking Dr. Tour, and his argument was that Dr. Tour didn't understand information theory. And I was
quote unquote Professor Dave.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I knew that he is, heavily involved in nanotechnology and also computer science. I'm like, I wager that guy probably knows a little something about that. And given the fact that he's applying that logic on the molecular level to create machines that are robots, I mean, what do you think is fundamentally required to create robots? I'm just saying. You have to, at a minimum, you have to understand input output, right?
So,
Saul, I leave. It's late here. It's almost 2 in the morning, and I'm tired.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. We're honored.
Yeah.
And you probably if you watched the John Sanford thing, you've been watching this for a long time. So thank you. And God bless you for all your work.
Great debate, too. Thank you, Otangelo.
Yeah, thank you.
Otangelo,
good night.
Otangelo, tRNAs are one of your favorite topics. You can't leave us. Great debate, my friend. Have a good night.
Well, if you guys want that I share something very interesting before I go, then if you give me 5 minutes and then you can go on, but I'll go sleep afterwards. Is that possible, Saul?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Let me just share that here, which I think it's fantastic information. This is from a peer-reviewed science paper. I will read it for you guys. Believing that the genes alone mediate the workings of a cell simply as a blueprint cannot be supported. The living cell is volitional and appreciates its individual ability to analyze data and take decisions. Hey, think about that. Individual cells can make complex calculations and decisions based on their exact relations to other cells and organs. And cells are at the same time signaling back and forth to other cells, sharing information that helps determine the exact location. And cells are able to analyze multiple competing signals and make decisions how to use them. Isn't that amazing?
Well, not only is it amazing, you also have to factor in the receptors that are required in order for that information transfer that you just read about to occur, and then the underlying information requirement for those receptors to exist. I mean, it's to me, if when you really start to analyze these things, and this is why I make the argument that the quote unquote evolutionary activists that we deal with don't actually go and read anything beyond the headlines. And while they make the accusations that we do nothing but read abstracts, it's like, okay, well, you never actually address the underlying arguments. So who's actually the one reading the abstract?
Yeah. Mostly they make a quick Google search when a topic comes up and then they post it. That is happening many, many times on Facebook. And then I ask, did you read the paper? And mostly they didn't read. They simply believe blindly what they see the headlines. They believe blindly in evolution and what science says. And if it has a scientist, science is saying that it must be true. That's unfortunately what we see very frequently. That kind of engagement. It's just superficial. They don't go into the science to try to understand actually what's happening, and that's very sad because that's self-delusional.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, Otangelo, appreciate you as always, man.
Get you some rest, buddy.
Yeah, get some sleep, buddy.
Yes,
Okay.
take care, Otangelo.
Bye-bye. Good night. Have fun.
Good night.
Bye.
But the signal in the cell is very intuitive to me, and that's mind blowing in itself that these cells are they're signaling and communicating, and if the theory is true, which I don't believe it is, there's intelligence in that cell somehow, so that they're missing because the mechanism, the way they're describing it, it's just not able to do it. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Sal. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
Oh no, I will have to step out for a few minutes, and so you guys will have to carry on without me.
Is Jeremy backstage? You look down? Is anybody grayed out?
Jungle's here.
Yeah, you may want to. You may want to.
Here he is.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to join?
It looked like Jeremy may be backstage. Is there somebody else you see grayed out back there?
Jeremy can't join us because
that's right. His mic.
Because his mic is.
Okay, but we can still read your chat. Your chat's backstage, buddy. Your private chat. Sorry, I forgot about that. Apologize.
I think a lot of these people are just making excuses not to serve God or not to listen.
You go ahead, take you a break, Sal. Whatever you need to do, we'll keep it going. Go ahead, Jungle. Sorry.
Yeah, I think a lot of these people are just making excuses for not serving God or for not doing what they know they should be doing. They're just making excuses. I mean, it's human nature.
Yeah, but they're denying things that that's just, I guess that's just very a lot of cognitive dissonance there, that they're denying some things that I couldn't deny. Like I said, if I left the faith for some reason, if I was ever to apostatize and leave the faith, I'd have to go with like aliens or panspermia. I just still couldn't accept the theory.
They have to be ignoring the evidence. They have to be, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the more I study creation and learn about creation, the more I can praise God, actually.
Well, the Bill Tavis guy that SFT and I were joking on, and he was talking trash in chat during the debate tonight. Like, he was running around claiming that evolution showcases the glory of God. It's God's creation. And I'm
if
like,
it existed.
It's like, well, okay. You are. This is why I make the point about the artificial intelligence pre-programming capacity to make adaptation. It's like, that is, yes, I agree that portion of the logic glorifies God 100%. But you're arguing that, well, it glorifies God assuming he pre-programmed the capacity to do that. If you're arguing the literal antithesis of that none of that existed and now it does, without the influence of the Almighty God. How are you claiming that that glorifies him? That makes no sense whatsoever. You're literally arguing that he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
How does that glorify God?
And
you
then
are
he's
claiming
actually,
he didn't do anything to make this happen. Like, what are you talking about?
or
That
if he
makes
did,
no sense.
if he did, he winded it, and it's doing it through a process of death. You know what I mean? And that's weird on his face too. It's
And the
definitely not
process
biblical.
of selecting mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing. This goes back to the whole, do they spew nothing but talking points? I mean, tonight, Neff spewed a bunch of talking points. Now, granted, his were at a slightly higher level than Todd, but it's like, at what point do you guys not comprehend that basically everything you have spewed has been spewed, that has been spewed as a supposed evidence of bad design, continues to be debunked and actually turns out to be fundamental requirements?
Well, Neff said tonight, he said something like, well, as soon as you guys can publish some peer-reviewed evidence, then you can, he'll be able to change his mind or something like that. I forget what he said, but it was something like that.
Well, that is a very obnoxious atheist talking point of, well, if you don't publish a peer-reviewed paper, then your argument has no foundation. Like, what? That literally contradicts everything about philosophy and thought. Like, okay, so you're arguing that my conclusion is not true unless everybody agrees with me?
No, the publishers have to agree with you.
Right.
It's not everybody.
Not
It's
even
only the
everybody.
publishers.
Yeah. It's the consensus of the scientific community.
I mean, to me, it's like, okay, so basically you are arguing that yes men are required in order for something to be true.
They don't call them editors for a reason, for no reason, They edit out any good information,
Well, just look at history, how hard it is to get something that's in the mainstream science accepted overturned. It's never been easy. Even like with just a recent example would be Mary Schweitzer and her soft tissue in the dinosaur bones. They fought her saying like it must be contamination or biofilm or this or that, and then finally they had to accept it. And then of course, I think they finally accepted it once they had an escape mechanism on the iron preservation, but they fought her.
That's a lot of cognitive dissonance right there.
You know what I find entertaining about that? And you brought up the whole aspect of contamination. It's like, okay, so it's more acceptable to conclude that it was contamination inside of the bone, but it is 100% reasonable to conclude that a quasi, maybe kind of sort of a non-functional protein in an asteroid that's been on Earth for 30 freaking years somehow is indicative and proves beyond doubt that proteins can form in space.
Yeah, that's just the whole point. They argued it until they couldn't argue it anymore, but they did. They discredited her. I can only imagine, of course she was under Jack Horner. I can only imagine if she, because she is believes in the Bible, and she's just, believes in old Earth and theistic evolution. So I can just imagine if she was a creationist and found that, like Dr. Mark Armitage, and he was fired he had peer-reviewed work and he was fired. So I know what would have happened. So that tells you right there that if you do that, and she even said in her interview that she was scared, she was literally terrified to come out with what she found.
Well, there's no telling the level of, especially now with the technology.
What we don't know because of this, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I agree with you on that point. What we don't know and what we have not discovered because people being afraid to either publish what they find or afraid to even ask the question about things that challenge the underlying principles. I mean,
they even refused on air to do a carbon-14 test on the tissue.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree in the context of fossils, and also just in like all of the underlying questions of like we have read, write, and erase nano machine protein robots. I mean, they're literally called that in a literal sense in peer-reviewed papers, but nobody will call that into question in relation to like the underlying fundamental of evolutionary theory. Like functionality is dependent on read, write, and erase. Like, I mean, how do you explain that? It being a fundamental requirement for new function, like for functional variation. Oh, cool, we got the same sequence. Oh wait, it turns out through the ability to do execute, read, write, and erase modification, you can change the outcome. Like what?
The least they could do is say, like Chris Keith was saying, a very intelligent alien did it, programmed all this stuff, you know.
Yeah, because I went into a stream and Knox stream, and I was hitting them on junk DNA. Right after we come out of Neff stream, we're talking about it. I just happened to go over there, and I was talking about it, and they literally, fought me on that. Oh no, they never really said it was junk DNA, and yes, they did. And finally, they had to kind of accept it. But science is, it makes mistakes, or they're not always looking here. I said, but what if they would have looked at it like it had function to start out with, like it from the creationist model, and how far would we be along in modern medicine? Look how that held us back, and that's just the truth of the matter,
Well, no, I agree with that completely. I mean, the point I was making with David earlier about the intron difference and like the different splicing signals that are variable based on introns. And it's like, we have now discovered beyond doubt that some of the most devastating diseases are caused by mutations in introns that affect alternative splicing. So when you really start to consider, like when they're looking at these sequences and genes and the information contained and such, if the introns, which they're claiming have no bearing, are different, then that means what they're claiming is a duplicate is not a duplicate. It's not a copy. It's a completely unique, if you looked at it from the top level of also incorporating the introns into it, then you're actually looking at two different genes, not a copy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're talking about like in the non-codon regions.
Okay, so we're now discovering that the introns actually have very important functional influence on the functional outcome, right?
Right.
So what's been viewed, there's plenty of instances where there's like, oh, when they're only looking at the exons, they think it's just a copy. And that the intron variations, they've been ignoring the intron variations because they say, oh, well, the only thing that matters is the exon. Well, now they're discovering that, wait, it actually turns out that introns do have important functional variation, like influence. So it's like, okay, if you actually looked at this and you viewed all of the nucleotide base pairs and did a comparison, then you would no longer have a duplicate.
Oh, you mean, okay.
It's not, at that point, it's not just, this was a copy and paste. It's like, no, there's a completely different functional outcome, even though from their argument, it's just a copy. It's actually, it's not a copy.
It's not a completely new, I see what you're saying.
Right, like it may have
It has
some baseline similarities, but
you're talking between species or just in general?
No, I'm talking about just inside of a human, like inside of a genome. Like, oh, well, this is just a copy, and then now they're finding out, no, it's not. Like you can have this, like this, what they thought was a copy, right? It's got these introns and these splicing signals. They find out, like, oh wait, this one can be normal, and then if we change this other one, the other one still functions, but the one that got modified actually now has a negative outcome because it turns out that what it's creating in terms of like protein expression is actually different than the first thing that we called a copy. And so they're discovering all these different things, like new diseases and such, that are being caused by this. So now what they're actually coming to the realization on is that many of these genes that they thought were just duplicate alleles are not actually duplicate. They have entirely different function.
So each one compared to each other.
Right. They were just doing the code comparison wrong.
Oh, okay.
To that end, I want to point out something. So you were talking, I joined in mid-conversation. You're talking about the supposed gene duplication. Is that correct?
Yeah.
As being a source of novelty. There are some serious problems with it. They for example, the tubulin paralogs, you have an alpha, beta, and gamma. And they say, well, that's so clearly a case of gene duplication. The problem is if an individual doesn't have all three paralogs, the system dies.
Yep.
All three duplicates have to be there. And of course, some snotty evolutionary biologist said, well, you obviously didn't read the literature. And then he provides it. And I read I read through it. I said, this is garbage.
Lou Gehrig's disease is another example of that.
Yeah. I said, I looked at this. I said, this is garbage. They had to invoke things like specialized gene fusion. And I said, how did the thing not die? Because you need these structural elements to make the cell live to begin with. I said, this is just garbage. They keep invoking phylogeny. I said, the problem is you can't invoke phylogeny and all these supposed proofs of evolution if the creature's going to be dead in the process. So sorry, that was just my rant. And I said, I'm sure we're just, we're only scratching the surface here. We've just seen the tip of the iceberg of problems of gene duplication.
Well, I agree with you completely, Sal. What gets me irritated is like, I use this from a very dumbed down perspective in relation to what we're talking about now. But it's like I have a WordPress website and I'm going to have a contact form on this page that's just like insert your first name, last name, email address. And then on the sales page, I've got first name, last name, phone number, email address, what you're looking to purchase, and any special notes and what your timeline is. Oh, and you can upload images and documents. But then because the baseline source code to send, to post that information to the database and like send an email is the same, to claim that it's the exact same thing because of some of the look at this similar source code. It's like, yeah, there's similar source code in this like one chunk over here, but then you've got 100 other lines of code that result in the variable differences between the two. And you're going to claim that because they're both inside of the same website, one must have evolved from the other. This chunk of source code evolved into the other source code without any talent of intelligent agency being required. It's like, get out of town. It makes no sense. I think you're on mute if you're talking.
I think he's looking at his diagram.
I can't tell. Is he on mute though?
Yeah.
Sorry. I got lost. I had too many windows open. So what you're seeing here is what I was talking about. Tubulins are very important for the network of the cell. Let's see. What does a tubulin do? This creates microtubules. And microtubules,
they're structural, they're transportation components.
It's kind of late.
So many things.
A microscopic tubular structure present in numbers in the cytoplasm of cells. So this is, let me see if I can get something more substantive.
On-demand
Okay, it's part of the cytoskeleton of the cell. So basically, the cell kind of has its own quote-unquote skeleton to help it put itself together. And I believe, it's been a while since I studied cell biology. So we have these motor proteins that go up and down the the microtubules, and let me see if it's mitosis. Yes. So these tubules are important to cell to mitosis. All right. So if this doesn't work, then the creature's dead because there's no mitosis. All right. So what did the evolutionary biologist said? Well, clearly they said the alpha and beta tubulins evolved from a common ancestor. And I wanted to say, you guys do you guys have an ounce of logic in your brain? Because the way that the tubule works is it has to have both alpha and beta. That's how it knows, kind of like it helps it do directions. Like when these motor proteins are moving up and down, it's able to figure out that it's moving in the right direction. I mean, if it were all the same thing, it wouldn't work. I mean, do you guys have an explanation? How can you have a gene duplication as an explanation when you need both genes together, the alpha and beta? They're very similar, but they're distinct enough that they can be recognized by these motor proteins and then any other cellular function. So they both have to be present for the cell to live, or at least to reproduce, because without this, there's no mitosis.
Well, and I think something else that it gets glossed over in this, or in what you're talking about there, Sal, is like the underlying information and structure must be there, but then for the motor proteins, the three-dimensional structure of the microtubule must be specific in order for the components of the motor proteins to have the specifically required locations for their feet to bind.
Exactly.
On a chemical level, and then and for the ATP and ADP to be able to expel the energy to make the next move.
Exactly.
And then the place for them to bind when the energy is expressed or executed in order to move to the next spot, you have to have the appropriate location to bind from a three-dimensional chemical or molecular structure. Am I correct on that?
Yes. And so someone like Dr. Dan would say, "Oh, it's so clear because we did a phylogenetic analysis." I said, "That's BS," because that circular reasoning, you're assuming that it can be done. The problem is, how is this mechanistically reasonable? You can't extrapolate your little phylogenies where you're able to do like on Ancestry.com to determine if someone is a common ancestor of someone else, like say of the Pilgrims on the Mayflower. This is a difference. It's an equivocation. They're making that as some sort of solution to the mechanistic problem that's here. It's how, it's very easy to do and creationists will totally accept that humans can descend from other humans. The problem here is with the gene duplication, the creature will die. You can't assume that there's common descent if the thing's going to die in the process of evolving, or not even exist to begin with. And then I read the explanation and I said, it was even more nuts than that. They're invoking like gene duplication followed by these proteins had some sort of independent function before, and then they got simultaneous gene fusions with other pieces of genes at the same time. And I'm just like, how is this? This is more outrageous than special creation because it's so ridiculous.
Well, it's the
ridiculously impossible. So
right. This goes back to, and I know I'm going on my tangents about this, but like, is it logical, plausible, and probable that any of this could occur? And if it is not all three, then you do not have a remotely rational theory or hypothesis of how something is solved. It is nothing but complete and utter imagination.
Yeah.
And I when you get into the phylogenies and all that kind of stuff, to me, I'm like, that's why I started with David earlier tonight. Of like, at what level? What is your explanation? You claim that we don't have any explanation for families and kinds and all that kind of stuff. What is your argument for it? Like, let's get down to the root assumptions that are required for evolution to be true. And look at the gigantic level of assumption that is required at the foundation of your argument, and they never want to, and claim ignorance. I'm like, you're claiming that I don't know what I'm talking about, or Otangelo doesn't know what he's talking about, or Sal, or any of us don't know what we're talking about, but you can't even answer what is the fundamental requirements for your own theory that you claim has like abiogenesis is not something that we have to discuss. Okay, fine. What is the foundation of evolutionary theory? Oh wait, you don't even have any of that other than gigantic assumption?
And I laughed when
Go on.
when David Neff said he didn't understand my question about where the instruction's coming from, or what the mechanism is for writing the instruction. He laughed. He wrote it off like he didn't understand what I was saying. And I just laughed. I said, okay, whatever.
Well, on any level though, that what they will go to is co-evolving. You know what I mean? And on a cellular level, even especially on the micro level, they'll it's everything's co-evolving. It just so happens that this comes about when they need it to come about, and so it's again back to a need.
Well, and they suspend all the points that Sal was just making about the organism dies, it's dead. How is something that is dead evolving? It's dead. It's literally dead. It's not kind of dead. It's not sort of dead. It's dead. There is congratulations, a gene duplication fusion insert talking point happened. It killed the organism.
Just looking at those mechanisms, it's like, how does anyone or anything know that those parts put together will have that function? It's just amazing design and structure inside the cell.
What's a sidebar, guys? What's gonna be funny is tomorrow. It is almost guaranteed that Speed of Pudding will be doing a stream debunking all of the arguments that have been made tonight.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, we haven't triggered him enough lately. And we get some good stuff. But I've been running my mouth a bunch, and I've got to get up in a very, very short period of time. So, gentlemen, continue on. Have fun. Enjoy it as always. Sal, thank you, my friend, for everything you do and all the great paths you send us down and the knowledge you share. So I hope everyone has a great night.
You.
And
okay, John.
Yeah.
Keep working hard.
God bless you.
Don't work too hard.
Oh, I will. All right, guys.
Take care, John.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I have to give, I just need 1 minute. I'm administering a injection to my mom, and then I'll return shortly. And I have a few closing words or whatever. We'll just go on for however long we want the party to keep going. So just give me a couple minutes and I'll
take your time.
rejoin.
Okay. Standing still there?
I think he's probably listening from his phone somewhere.
He's making more pizza.
Then had his pizza, had some coffee and relaxing probably. I don't know how he puts these late night streams together, man. I don't. He must be. I don't know what shift he works, but if not, he is definitely, like John said, mainlining coffee.
Yeah, well, I gotta take a trip tomorrow to New Jersey. I found out that the closing they were supposed to have tomorrow, I guess it already happened. I don't have to do anything. So.
Wow. And so somebody asked me what time zone I'm in. I'm an Eastern Standard Time zone. And then, so you're going to make that trip to New Jersey tomorrow?
Yeah, I am Central right now. I'll be Eastern tomorrow.
Do they have early voting there? You going to go ahead and vote while you're there?
Well, I'll probably vote today, the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the only way I know how to vote, basically.
To try to plan a trip, maybe when you.
So well, I have to go there anyway and pick up some stuff, and then I don't know. Might have to go to Florida again. I don't know.
So after that closing, how many more trips do you think you'll have to make there?
Well, I have to empty out mostly the second floor level, mainly, And that'll be like at least 1 or 2 trips, and then I can start renovating it. And while I'm renovating it, then I'll be able to make some more trips.
That's good. And so go ahead, buddy, and make your points there. We won't keep you forever here, but I enjoy listening to you speak. So go ahead.
So just some things, laying out probably what I'll be doing with my channels. I am trying to do. I'm trying to get my Evidence and Reasons website going, and then it will have material that's not just restricted to creation evolution. Creation evolution will be 60 to 70% of the material because that is my specialty. But then there'll be links to personal testimonies, which I consider really good, like James Tour's testimony. So that'll be about 10%, and 10% to archaeology, and then 10% to what they call presuppositional apologetics, which gets into a little bit of philosophy. But the reason that that's sometimes important is a lot of these worldviews are usually self-destructing if you take it to their logical conclusion, especially atheism.
Yeah.
And so there'll be some criticisms of other religions too, which I think is important.
Archaeology is very important, and
Yeah.
history, known history.
And then there'll be even things that are not covered in churches, evidences for the faith. Like I'll be covering stuff like demons and UFOs. And I'm just like, this needs to be talked about, because it's like, did demon possession end after the age of the apostles, or are there still things like demons going around and possessing and oppressing people and making them do stuff?
Well, personally speaking for myself, I was schizophrenic, and that is borderline demon or satanic oppression or whatever, but that's pretty close to something like that.
Yeah, well, there are things that are, there are things that are physiological, there are things that are spiritual, and then there are things where something spiritual can affect someone's physiology. Because I'd briefly had some exposure to neuroscience, and one can actually see at the cellular level things that may cause certain problems in people's ability to think and function emotionally.
Their moods, yeah.
But the reason that probably the best-selling creationist book was Alien Intrusion, which was about demons and UFOs in 2018. It was like on the Amazon top 50. I mean, it was a bestseller. So it's like, yeah, these things aren't getting talked about, and there are people that have been able to be redeemed from this because they trusted in Jesus Christ. I only learned this in the last month. The reason Christianity spread in the first century, I mean, ultimately it was the Lord, but in specific details, it was because of exorcisms and healings. That's why it's not just a mere superstition that just overtook the others. This one just demolished the other. And when it says that when people were serving idols, they're serving demons, see that they're just inviting all this bad stuff in their life. And so when the people were told of the true God, it started to remove the demons out of their life, literally, because they were worshiping them.
That's fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep, it's true.
And so the reason we don't think about that much is because up until recently, Western culture had enough of Christianity in it to kind of keep the demons away. And now that we're becoming more pagan and atheistic, there's been an increase in requests for exorcisms.
Right, they're coming back.
Well, yeah, duh,
And as soon as atheism is debunked and shamed and everything, people will turn from that to the spiritism and demons and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to... Yes, thank you. See, I appreciate you guys expressing that, because I'll talk about that. I mean, the creation stuff is really great, but I love talking about the archaeology. And then I probably, as as I said, I'm willing to debate, but I think short debates favor the side that doesn't have that many facts, because then they can dodge and just what they call filibuster and just not answer questions. In a long, I said, if someone wants to really debate me, I said, okay, 5 days. We'll do this over 5 days. We're going to argue
A
facts.
correspondence debate.
Well, I've had debates online that were through text that
Yeah.
lasted a year and a half,
Yeah, it lasts forever.
and actually that transformed me. It persuaded me, like, goodness, I didn't realize the case for creation was this strong, because what they would do. See, in a short debate, someone will say, "Well, you didn't read this paper," and then they just act like they've won the debate. And it's great showmanship until you actually start to read the papers and their citations. And when we start to comb through them, you realize they're just all bluffing. A 5-day debate, they won't have that opportunity. So,
Right.
and then you really start to hammer them on the molecular details. So where I was headed with that is I'm not going to debate very much. That's not my plan. I want to create educational videos and lectures, and I'll be working with Dr. Change Tan. The other thing I'd really like to do is people have questions, and that there is available knowledge there's available material to deal with the questions. I'll try to deliver it. I certainly won't be able to answer every question, but for example, someone, Lena was asking about Demeter Kunev, and I believe Otangelo had discussed that with. He had a interview with Dimitri, so that's a good topic. Physics is also a great interest of mine. Before I forget, George Bond said, "You need to assign some moderators just in case you want inappropriate comments removed or hidden from the chat. Chris Keith may be able to help you set that up."
Yeah, what you need to do if you want to make somebody a moderator, like say you want to make George Bond a moderator, it's probably good to have somebody that joins your chats frequently. Like I use, Doki usually shows up my chats when I do, or my streams. I don't do very many, but when I do one, and how you do it's very simple. You just open another window.
Okay.
So you can get to the chat, and then you click on that person, and it'll give you a prompt where you can make them a moderator. There's like 5 little things you can do, and one of them's add a moderator. So if you open another window like to this stream right here, and you may need to mute it so you don't get feedback. But
Yeah, the YouTube stream.
yeah, so open like do you know how to maybe just go to your channel, open up another a tab or your channel, open up, and you can get back to this stream.
Okay, give me a couple minutes. I have to try
Sure,
to figure out how
take
to
your
do
time.
this. Thanks.
No big deal. That's what we're here for, buddy. I had to have somebody teach me too when I was doing it.
I really believe that archaeology and history can be paired up with the DNA evidence, because we know who the major sons of Ham are in Africa. They're the Phoenicians, which are the sons of Put, the son of Ham, the Egyptians, which are the descendants of Mitzrayim, the son of Ham, and the Cushites, which is the progenitor of the dark sub-Saharan Africans and Ethiopians, and he's the son of Ham, and they're all E3s. They all have an E3Y chromosome. Each one is a little different from each other because each one is a branch of the tree, the same tree that comes from Ham. So you could actually identify each of those E3Y chromosomes with a name and their descendants. It'd be the Phoenicians from Put, the Egyptians from Mizraim, and the Cushites from Cush. Now, Cush had a son called Nimrod. He was a great hunter early on, of course, at the time of the Tower of Babel, and he is actually instrumental, it seems, in the building of the Tower of Babel at Eridu. So Nimrod is one of the sons of Cush, the Ethiopian African, or the Cushite, the dark-skinned African. So Cush is one of the sons of Nimrod is actually the son of Cush, but his Y chromosome never went to Africa because there's a CY chromosome, which is from the family of the EY chromosome, and it only goes west from Mesopotamia. It starts in Mesopotamia. It goes east. It only goes east and not west. So the CY chromosome never went to Africa. And you can identify his CY chromosome all the way through Asia, all the way through the Pacific Islands, all the way to Australia, all the way to the Americas. You can find the CY chromosome, and I believe that is the Y chromosome of Nimrod, because he was the only king who was a great hunter in the land of Shinar, which is Mesopotamia, who is the son of Cush. And there's a DY chromosome is very similar. They are, a lot of Tibetans and Japanese have a DY chromosome, and Andamanese too.
And Chris, how come you're not? I can't click on your name in the chat. George, I can click on. I can't. It's like.
Maybe let me see here. I've got my phone open too. Maybe let me close. Let me see here. Let me close.
Oh, wait, hang on. I stand corrected.
Okay.
I just made you a moderator.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jungle Jargon.
No, I pretty much went through it all, my whole spiel about how the Y chromosome matches up with known human history, biblical history, verifies the Bible very well. It authenticates the Bible. Not only does it authenticate the Bible, but it disproves the out of Africa theory, because the A, B, C, D, and E Y chromosome is its own tree, and none of the other Y chromosomes proceed from that tree, which is the African tree. They all go back to the originator, which would be Noah, and start their own tree. None of the other people are connected to the African tree. So it disproves the out of Africa theory.
Yeah,
right?
I think I've heard that somebody in a video disproving the out of Africa theory there. But yeah, one thing to note. Sorry, Jungle. Just that sound note. One thing to note on the. You can also, I believe. Well, the good thing about making somebody a mod like that too is no one can. If somebody tries to post a link in your chat, unless they're a moderator, it will not show up. You know what I mean? So if I wanted to post a link to your stream, or I wanted to post a link to somebody, a channel or anything, I could do it because I'm a moderator now. It will show up. Anybody else tries it, it will not show up.
Oh, so that was really nice. I was able to post that Standing for Truth's channel. So I might have had mod privileges.
Yeah, he gave you mod privileges. If you're blue, you got that wrench, you got mod privileges. And I think you can block people. There's a couple ways you can block people, but you can block people that same way too. So if you need to block somebody that's coming in here in the chat and they're disruptive, you'll be able to block them too. If I'm not mistaken, I think you can do it from there.
That would be totally awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be again, I'm I really don't want to get into debate mode.
I don't blame you. It's the same way. That's the way you're talking about your channel, and of course, me, I would be minus all of your scientific knowledge. But that's kind of the way I want to go with my channel, because that's what I'm into study the Jesus in the Old Testament topology right now, and I'm big into it. So that's kind of what I like to focus on when I get a chance to do a stream. So.
And you need to concentrate on science anyway. Your science that you do.
But it's a good. also
Yeah.
take a break and give them something. You know what I mean? If there's something else you're interested in doing, it all ties together. Like you said, we're in spiritual warfare. So, right, and if we are approaching the end times, and then people need to be aware. There's people out there. There is forces out there to deceive you.
Well, the thing is that drama does get a lot of internet traffic.
Yeah.
So that's why debates are popular, because people like drama. That's the reason we go to sporting
I
events.
hate them though, because it's mainly like sometimes it comes down, like you said, people will dodge questions. It's like who has the better rhetoric or more experience can win, and that's just it doesn't do anybody any good. You know what I mean? Because they leave there thinking they won something, but like you said, if you're not leaving away with the real truth of the matter, then it was pointless for you to waste your time to watch the debate. So.
Yeah, well, and I try to be thorough. Sometimes when someone throws this, my opponent will throw a peer-reviewed paper, a book I've not read. It's like, well, what do I say? I can't. I'd look bad saying, well, whatever's in that book is false, without having even read it. That's just not the way I operate. Even though I'll say I probably will find that doubtful, but I want to at least, if they throw a challenge like that, at least want to give it, half a try to look into it. And so, in a short debate, people just can pull stunts like that, and that's kind of like what I don't like. But yet, the drama is a good thing. That's as far as drama goes and entertainment. That there's a place for that. But for some long-term serious stuff, the debates are probably not the for the real serious students. There has to be some degree of learning, maybe not going through an entire college course, but there's some basics. So that's where I'm aiming. And I have to point out one thing that's really on my heart. Lena was interested on the speed of light. I'm really glad someone was asking me about physics. This is some of the physics stuff that I've been looking into, because that's actually why I got into creationism. Went back to school was to study physics stuff so I could work on the radiometric dating and distant starlight problem. So, and that's the other thing. As I interact with people, just like Jungle Jargon was just saying now, that archaeology is important. I want to be able to kind of hear from people where they are. And there's some things that we don't explore, like why is God so hidden? And then with the problem of evil. Those are things that I've struggled with, and I think I have some answers that I've gotten from the Bible that I'd like to share with people. So I probably would like to cover more things than just like mitochondrial Eve or whatever.
Right, yeah. That'd be fascinating.
If I could show you some of the physics stuff I'm been trying to do, and see if I have it. The reason I ended up in biology, that's where everything's kind of, it's practically being handed to us on a platter. There's so much stuff. It says here, George, let me attend to something that George asked. Make Lena and Jungle a mod. So I'm going to, I have to go to the other window. See, I'm learning this. So Lena is going to be a mod. And how do I add someone that hasn't typed anything? I have to sort of ask him.
Yeah, Jungle, you need to probably. Do you have ability to type into the comment section, or are you only in the stream?
Yeah, I don't. If I haven't typed in a while, I closed out my window because I'm trying to.
Can you type anything in the private chat? I don't know if you can do it in the private chat or not.
Yeah, I closed out the window to type in the private chat. I could type in the private chat, but it wouldn't.
Let me see if I have anything in the private chat. Let me see.
That kicks me out too.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Well, I know better next time.
Yeah, well, next time he's in there, Jungle, didn't you? Well, it's probably been buried by now. I thought you typed something way earlier in the chat, but
yeah, I think I did earlier, but if it goes by too much, it's gonna.
I'm going all the way up.
Go out.
Well, I see Standing for Truth, so he came in after that. Maybe you are
It's
in
going
this.
to disappear. It's going to disappear from the thing.
Yeah, it's been too far back. But it can get you next time. It's good. That's the reason, if get a few people that you trust, because like sometimes the one or two people you have may not be in here. Somebody that's usually going to join. I went ahead and subscribed to you tonight, and I hit the bell so that anytime you do anything, it's going to alert me, so I'll know about it, and then I'll generally like to follow you, anything you say you do. So
Oh, thank you. So this is kind of a throwaway website right now because
yeah, and I remember you saying that, and that's fine.
yes,
So if you do a
thank
new
you.
website, you'll know what to do, and you just let us
Yeah.
know when you do a new website, and that way we can subscribe. And then when we come in
Thank you.
there, it's like you just do the same thing, make us a mod then, or whoever you want to make a mod.
Well, I want to make a website that people will be glad to refer their friends or social
Yeah.
media so they could learn. So I just briefly, as I was saying, the biology stuff is being handed to us on a silver platter right now, and it's just so easy now to defend creation and intelligent design. But where it's been very difficult has been in the area of physics, but that's the area I really love. So this is some of the research that I've been doing on the speed of light and relativity, and so I'm hoping to be able to. I've got invited to publish on this on an ID friendly journal, and also a nice way to teach calculus. So that's just a little bit of a preview of some of what I'm hoping to be doing over the next year. I'm actually I'm probably cutting down to a lot of my research work with Dr. Sanford, and so over the next year, I probably will be working a lot just to build out this apologetics, evidence, and reasons website to be able to help Christians, and we'll just see where it goes from there.
That's what
It's really been on my heart to help believers.
And so we're gonna get something out of that, man. Do what you feel it's on your heart, and that it's in your wheelhouse, and that's what these are for. Have fun and spread the gospel, and there's several ways to do it. Everybody has their. I think everybody has their little part they can do. And I was just listening to the lady that got hit. I don't know if everybody saw on David Wood's channel, but she goes to the Speaker's Corner. It's in England. It's supposed to be one of the places that they can still have free speech there. And so yeah, she got hit, and she was talking about that's just what the Lord's put on her heart to right now to kind of witness to the Muslims, to bring them, show them that the Quran is inconsistent. There's several versions, that the holes in the narrative, the problems. So everybody's, I feel, God puts different things on different people's hearts, what they might be good at, so you never know.
Well, I tell you, there's just been a total, there's been a total explosion of just information that's helping the creationist cause. I got saved 42 years ago, and there were a lot of questions I had then that weren't answered that we have answers to now, that God has made available. There's been discoveries in archaeology that have really helped, discoveries in science. Those are the two big ones there, right there. And I sometimes shudder to think, if I were born 100 years ago, I don't know that I'd be a believer. I mean, I certainly always had the heart for God, but I have a certain skeptical mind. So there's a part of me that does, in some sense, identify with atheists in that they're very skeptical, and I respect that. The thing that I definitely don't side with them on is, like, when I nearly walked out of the Christian faith 20 years ago, I appreciated their skepticism. They were asking questions that I wanted to ask, but I couldn't express that in church without feeling hated.
Yeah.
I mean,
mentioned
church
that
sometimes
before. I
it's a
know
place
exactly
like if
what
you
you're talking about.
express questions and doubts, it's not welcome.
Yeah, that's true.
And
You
I
don't
like,
question it; you just accept it, and that's
yeah,
not necessarily helpful all the time. You know.
exactly. It's like if you're not going to get your questions answered in church, where else are you going to go? Well, I went to the atheists, and the thing that really turned it is I said, okay, well, how do you find meaning in life? I said, if you have an atheistic worldview, where do you derive your meaning and morals and purpose? And they just locked up. They sounded reasonable up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just totally melted. I said, okay, no offense intended, but I'm going to go at least with the Christians right now, because at least there's a chance that they're right. I don't have all the answers, but I know you guys don't have any for the ultimate things that I need. And so that was the beginning of my return to the Christian faith. I mean, I had never really left it, but I had really bad bouts of agnosticism. So
yeah, I was saved at a young age too. So, and then when I went into college, I was really hit with the evolutionary theory, and and not only that, and also just about most subjects. Luckily I didn't take psychology; I took sociology. But in like Western civilization, the teacher particularly, she was really big on bashing Christianity. So you see
goodness.
that, and it's heartbreaking though, because that shouldn't really even be their agenda. Present the evidence and both sides, but they don't.
And I found out. I think I'm running out of gas, but I'll have a few closing thoughts.
Sure, go ahead.
I realized the reason churches don't like to deal with this stuff. It's a very safe thing to just say, okay, we're just going to teach straight out of the Bible, and we're just going to just keep reading the scriptures, which is a wonderful thing. The thing about apologetics, evidence, and reasons is we're actually using things outside of the Bible to argue our case, and that can be kind of scary. Church leadership and other church members will feel a little uncomfortable with that, and that's exactly why they'll kind of give token acceptance and say, well, that's a good thing, you're trying to find evidence and reasons for the Christian faith, but then they'll never invite you to teach Sunday schools.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the thing that convinces me is where the Bible says that creation is evident. So the Bible itself says that creation is evidence of God.
He's also written into her heart, you know what I mean, too. So I always felt that. I got saved by the Gospels, and I always go back to the Gospels because I didn't know anything about the Old Testament or anything. I knew from just the very first time that I heard the Gospels, and that it was the way Jesus spoke. I've never heard anything to this day, anyone else in literature speak with that kind of authority and just truthfulness, and it rung true to me. And then when I got saved, Jesus gets revealed, and there's certain passages that are hard to understand, but every passage in the Bible, there's lessons to be learned, and you have to dig. You have to study them. You can't just go through and read real quick and think you're going to know everything, because there's a lot to them.
Go on, Jungle.
The only problem is that whenever you do explain, people's doubts and objections,
five more.
Often it's still not enough. So if they're not believing God's word, it's because they're close to it. Regardless, even if you did show them or convince them of all their doubts and everything, they still can't see it. Or
at some point, ultimately, you do have to humble yourself, and when you come to God, it does require a bit of faith. But He's going to draw. If He's drawing you near, then if you humble yourself, it says He's faithful to. If you knock, the door shall be open. So I truly believe that somebody's really searching and skeptics.
So ultimately, they do need God's word. That's the thing. But but I still believe in showing what the evidence is, and knowing and understanding the evidence, and knowing science and understanding science. I believe that's very important. Sorry,
Jungle Jargon, you're the mechanic, is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. And Chris, I think we've met. Were you a pastor
No,
or?
I'm not no pastor. I just very much enjoy the evolution creation debate because I think I've found very clearly that the holes in the theory, and I can point a lot of them out.
Yeah.
And then and just like you were saying, if you're looking into the Bible, there are passages that are hard to deal with. You know what I mean? And a lot of people's faith gets shooken. But so you might not necessarily be. I don't want to necessarily. I'm always trying to convert atheists. Maybe I'm trying to keep some people that are teetering on maybe leaving the faith. I want to strengthen their faith. You know what I mean? Yes. So that's why I like the topology study, but not necessarily convince a skeptic. But if you're a believer or you lean in toward believing, it's going to give you something more to bite onto. So, but I'll let you go ahead and wrap up what you want to say there, because I don't want to keep you all night long here. So,
well, God willing, this isn't goodbye. Hopefully, we'll talk again. I think I may offer to just host some of the after shows for the debates that go on, and because that's easier. Because I really don't want to be a moderator.
When you finally get
hosting a debate.
That's tough. When you finally get the channel that you think that you're going to be the one you're going to stick with, that's when you probably want to do that, and then that'll draw. Then we can all drive some traffic to your channel, and that'll get you tons of subscribers and viewers. So
yeah, thank you, and you'll be able to advise me on content. I mean, there's stuff I won't be able to give because it's just outside of my field of expertise, but I want to thank you guys for what you're doing, and just to reinforce how grateful I am for this community. I got it. Oh yeah. I've debated atheists for 20 years, haven't got a single one converted. It says in Proverbs, correct the fool and he'll hate you. So some of these guys, I correct them and they just hate me more after 20 years.
I think SFT says it all the time. We're not really a lot of times doing these debates and doing the things he does. He knows he's not going to change the mind of the person he's debating. They're pretty much hammered, locked in. But it's the audience.
It just hardens them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just in passing, I'm realizing because the church has not been taking the risk and trying to entertain, this whole thing with apologetics, evidence and reasons, where we look at stuff that's outside of the Bible, like science, to help us find reasons to believe the Bible and therefore Christianity. Because they're not doing that, a lot of these kids are just leaving the church, and then now there's a lot of social justice stuff just getting into the church. It's just bad, and so I'm feeling that the way to help the Lord's people right now is sometimes just to bypass the church leadership. And,
right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to do, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't understand why I was going to put my email in the back chat for if you wanted to add it or something, but for some reason it's not showing up. Does it show up in your private chat, my email? I don't see it on mine. I don't know why.
Chris, I see it.
Okay, for some reason it's not showing. Maybe I need to refresh.
And I got I got a lot of emails. Thank you guys. So yeah. I'm gonna let me save this before I lose it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This would be really bad if I did.
Then you can invite people to and whatnot. And
well, can I ask, what denomination are you, Chris?
I'm actually non-denominational. I think you could name a denomination. I can point out a problem with it. I was raised Baptist, or even in church. We have a family church. It's Church of God. That's it's also.
Well, I'm sorry to be personal. The reason I asked is, can you close us in prayer? I think that's the right way to end our meeting.
Yeah,
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'd like to thank you for having me for first and doing the stream. But we'd like to close here, Lord. Thank you for letting us come together and be aware of your word, Lord. May us all have good health. We have a lot going on right now. We need you more than ever, Lord. We need to put ourselves with the full armor of God on so we can protect ourselves. I believe there are definitely demons right now manifesting that are coming against you, Lord, but together we can be strong as a body in Christ. And I would like to close with one of my good friend Nicholas's words: just trust Messiah, because if you trust him, you will be fine. Thank you very much, Sal.
Thank you, Lord. I thank the Lord, and I thank you all. God bless you. This, God willing, this isn't goodbye. We'll have a chance to talk again. So, thank you all to all the people on the panel and all the participants. Have a good night. Take care.
All right, good night.
See y'all. Good night. God bless. I'll see you in the chat, Nicholas. Just trust Messiah. I love that.